Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And in this video, I pulled up this tweet. I'll leave a link to the tweet in the description or the post. This is on X, formerly known as Twitter. And this is from Masa Capital. I'll leave a link to it, like I said, in the description so you guys could check it out and interact. So the reason I pulled this up was because this was a part of the UBS conference this morning, and this is something that Mike Sievert discussed. And this is the first that I've ever heard of this, so I wanted to emphasize that and bring that to light in this video. So what Mike Sievert discussed this morning is that they've built and designed the network to be able to do 80 gigs per month per every single customer. That's how they designed and densified and built the network in the first 3 years, going on year 4 post-merger. 80 gigs per customer. And I wanted to break that down. If you look at T-Mobile's usage for their highest plan, which used to be Magenta Max, now it's 5G, Go 5G Plus. If I remember, I could be wrong, but I think it's inching closer to 20 gigs on that plan. But that plan is still relatively low percentage-wise of the overall base. So if I'm looking at the average usage, it's maybe 10, 11, 12 gigs, maybe 13. So there's a lot of runway on capacity, and that's something that he points out here in this post. T-Mobile CEO, we built our network to serve 80 gigs per month. I was told of an imminent capacity shortage, though. And that's something that Cable put out there when discussing fixed wireless access. But of course, that's a different story. But if you look at that, right, if you look at the sector can support 80 gigs per customer, whoever's latching onto that sector. Now, this is where T-Mobile comes up with the extra capacity for FWA. They sit there, they analyze, and they look, and they say, hey, well, wait a minute. We have X amount of customers on this sector, and only 2 people are using more than 80 gigs a month, or less, or close to 80, whatever. So now we do the multiples, we add, we check the analytics, the statistics, and okay, now we can look at, okay, this is the average usage. This is where we think that wireless usage will be by 2030. So this is how many FWA connections we will allow in this sector, and that's kind of how they're coming up with that. Just to give you an example, I don't have the exacts, but that's just what I think that they're kind of looking at. So what's interesting about this, that 80 gigs in the future is probably going to have to go to 100 gigs or to 150 gigs. Why? Because wireless usage is continuing to increase. It increased this year. It will increase by the end of next year. It will increase by the end of 2025, and so on and so forth. There's going to be new use cases. They're already discussing that. The general usage is just going to increase, such as, if and when live TV goes to 4K, whenever that becomes mainstream, that's going to take up more bandwidth on FWA and wireless as well. A lot of people do streaming on devices that can do 4K now on their wireless devices. So that's going to increase usage. And then, like I just mentioned, FWA usage is going to increase as well. That's what I feel in the future is going to put additional strain onto these sectors. Home security cameras that the house didn't have, they now have. Like I said, more 4K streams, more gaming systems, laptops, computers, desktops, new use cases, Bluetooth, whatever, right? Whatever you can connect onto the wireless network or FWA home broadband, that's what's going to increase usage. It's just going to keep increasing. And that's something that T-Mobile has to plan for. So the 80 gigs that they can do now per customer, that's what they designed and built the network for. In the future, that's going to have to increase because the usage is increasing. That close to 20 gigs on the highest plan that T-Mobile has, that might go to 22, 25 gigs, maybe 30, right? So now you're getting closer to that 80 gigs. You're still quite far from it, but each year you inch up closer to it. So T-Mobile still has capacity for a few more years. And, that's when they can use that C-band and DoD strategically. They can take their time to build millimeter wave if they do ever decide to go mainstream with that. They can, there's still refarming of AWS that needs to happen. So there's more spectrum down the pipeline that they already have in their possession. They don't have to wait for an auction. They don't have to wait for the government to get their spectrum strategy together. They can deploy more as they see fit. They can further densify too. We have to take that into consideration. As usage increases, they can further densify to offset as well. If there's ever a crunch on spectrum in the future, 27, 28, whatever, they can further densify. Verizon showed us that blueprint during LTE. So even though, I've made videos about device limitations, eventually with time, that will get better, right? And time is moving very fast. We're already in 2024, 2025, 2026 is when I believe we'll get the 6, 7, 8 carrier aggregation mainstream devices. And also the reason that, Qualcomm and T-Mobile really can't push, because they still have to wait for Verizon and AT&T to catch up as well. Usually technologies get put out when there's more of it mainstream. Like Qualcomm is not all of a sudden going to shift and build a exclusive chipset just for T-Mobile because they can do 7 carrier aggregation. That's not how this works. They're going to wait until Verizon and AT&T have a need for that as well. So that's just something that I wanted to throw in as well. So this is a great post here on X. I'll leave a link to it, like I said, in the description. This is the first time Mike Sievert's ever mentioned that. That's why I pay attention to these conferences. That's just something to break down for you. But more is always needed. That's why the carriers are always stressing there's more spectrum needed. We need a better national spectrum strategy. So that is something always discussed behind the scenes. But for now, we got to look at return on investment before any other, I'm just throwing this out there. If there was another spectrum auction of mid-band early 2024, who could realistically spend another huge chunk of money on that spectrum without getting negative feedback from the board, because they still haven't obtained return on investment from the current spectrum? T-Mobile spent $26 billion on Sprint. They spent $9.3 billion on C-band. They spent money on DoD. They spent money on Auction 108. Where's the return on investment on just that? Verizon spent $50+ billion on spectrum and early clearance. Where's the ROI on that? They didn't participate in DoD even. So you know what I'm saying? So it might be a while before we see a spectrum auction just because of that. The carriers might be shy to really invest another huge chunk amount of money. We're talking another 20, 30 billion when they just spent 50. Yeah, I don't see that happening. I see the carriers being smart, especially Verizon. They show how they maneuver during LTE. They didn't really go aggressively into these auctions. They should have bought more AWS-3. They should have bought 600. They should have bought more spectrum, period, but they didn't. What did they do during LTE? They densified the network, and it worked. It simply worked. So let me know what you think about that in the comments. Leave all your comments in the comments. Just wanted to share this with you guys. Make sure you guys stay tuned for more. Like, share, subscribe. Follow my social media outlets. This is Tyrone with Tech Life, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.